the hot flushes stop because now the body thinks it's pregnant again, and it puts its energies into the uterus and breast instead of the skin. You see, estrogen causes capillary dilation, causing the blood to rush to the skin. The husband knows because all the blankets get thrown off in the middle of the night, and 10 minutes later they get pulled back on again. And so what the HRT does, yes, it stops the flushes, but it doesn't stop the weight gain. It actually doesn't affect the mood. And how many menopausal women, they're getting hot flushes, they've got weight gain, they're depressed, they have no desire for sex, and when they do have sex, it's painful because the cells lining most miserable. How does that woman group of pill? They just take the pill non-stop so they don't get a period while they're travelling.
No.
My daughter was quite well. It's being implemented today with breast cancer, cervical cancer. You think? She said, well, it's like this with the pill. By now, boomers, the ones were first were on the pill. The baby boomers are all in their 50s, 60s now. They're the ones having trouble going through menopause. Almost without let's have a look at the baby boomers' daughters. They're the ones with endometriosis. They're the ones with polycystic ovarian syndrome, fibroids in the uterus, depression. Let's have a look. Sometimes it's either hormonal imbalance. There's more. What causes a chicken to be fully developed in 5 weeks? Growth stimulants. They're not allowed to give growth stimulants anymore, so they've genetically modified the chickens to produce more. They're getting 80% of sewerage. Male fish with female tendencies, female fish with male. What about cattle? In Australia, it's against the law to give cattle growth stimulants. But one cattle farmer's wife told me that they knock on her door once a month, pushing the growth stimulants, and they tell you exactly when to stop the growth stimulants so it's not picked up in the blood test. Whew. Still in the tissues. We're going to show you how to make lentils taste fantastic. So if it's in the meat, it's in the product. Number 3, I've met people who've been vegetarians all their life, never been on the pill. There's more. Plastics. In the molecular structure of estrogen, there's a phenyl ring. And this phenyl ring unlocks the door to get the estrogen into the cell. Many plastics today contain phenyl. So these are some of the names you look for. Nonylphenol. And also that's in most plastics. If you can squeeze the plastic, it's got nonylphenol in it. The plastic bottles you have now, they're called BPA free, or the hard plastic. So BPA is your bisphenol A, and your bisphenol A is chemicals have the... You call them dummies? If we think we've got a hormonal imbalance today, you wait another 10 years. To eliminate plastic, it's handy stuff. Store yours that you nylon and acrylic. Ladies. But you have a company in America, it's called Fruit of the Womb. Loom. Almost. Fibres. Viscose is made from wood pulp. Modal, they're not toxic like. To be incredibly dangerous, and has banned it because so many, because of the Roundup. It was 6 months ago, there was from pancreatic cancer. These are 3 cells. A xenoestrogen is classification of a xenoestrogen. Estrogen and human. And human. How big is the human estrogen? It just sits in the receptor. So how big is plant? Plant is just a little slip of a thing that just slips into the lining of the receptor site. So where the soybean is called Roundup Ready, is that right? Because it's been genetically modified to resist Roundup. And 5 times before harvest, the whole field is sprayed. That soybean is a dangerous soybean. Not because of the natural estrogens, non-GMO. The plant estrogens work with the body. Remember Psalm 104 verse 14 that God gave herbs for the service of man? So what happens is the plant estrogens come along and they knock, "Excuse me, do you need me?" That cell from the xenoestrogen, they work with the needs of the body. Whereas these xenoestrogens, remember, they've already got the key. They've got the phenyl ring. They're in there whether you need them or not. So how do we turn this around? Number one, eliminate. If you don't turn the tap off, you're still going to be mopping up in the other corner. Eliminate the pill. Eliminate HRT. So what do we do for birth control? Sex is two-part. Contraception should be two-part. There is a woman's role and a man's role. I believe the woman's role is to know when she's ovulating, and her body will give her 3 signs. One sign is her temperature will change. So she takes her temperature before she gets out of bed every morning, and she will find that the temperature will do this, then it'll drop and go up onto a higher plane. And that will happen around day 14. Taking her temperature allows her to define the day. The second is that her vaginal mucus will change. So when progesterone is high, it is profuse, clear and stringy. When estrogen's high, it's not as profuse and it's more white. The third sign is that her cervix changes. And as I showed you before, when progesterone's high, the cervix comes up a little thinner and the mucus plug goes. When estrogen's high, the cervix is thicker and the mucus plug is in place. Now, at first, a woman has got nothing to compare it to. But as the days and the weeks and the months go by, she starts to see that her 3 signs will all come together, usually in this week. And when she is not safe, he either masters the art of withdrawal or he uses a condom. I like the story of the Italian men. They pride themselves in not getting their women pregnant by mastering the art of withdrawal. I thought, how nice to see that the male is taking control, because often in society today the woman has her tubes tied or the woman goes on the pill. But as you can see, it should be a 2-part. So eliminate the pill and HRT, eliminate meat and its products. If you like meat and its products, must be organic. It's really not safe to go any other way today. Take the plastic out and your exposure as much as possible. Go organic as much as possible. So that's turning the tap off. Number 2, the liver has the ability to detoxify us from environmental poisons and estrogen. And it will take the estrogen down one of 2 pathways. One pathway is the hydroxy 2 pathway, the other pathway is the hydroxy 16 pathway. If the liver takes the estrogen down hydroxy 2 pathway, it's out. That's the one we want. If it takes it down the hydroxy 16 pathway, it comes back in 100 times worse. We don't want this one. So I'm going to call it Highway 2 or Highway 16. And I'm going to make a list that stimulate Highway 2 and inhibit Highway 16. I think I saw some Brussels sprouts in the garden. Bok choy, kale, they're all considered from the cabbage family, and they stimulate a plant chemical called indoles. And it's the indoles that encourage Highway 2 and discourage Highway 16. Vitamin B, 6, B9 and B12. Initially a person may have to take a vitamin B supplement, but your raw nuts and seeds are high in your B vitamins. Licorice, I'm not referring to the candy licorice, but the root herb, and also flaxseed. Flaxseed contains a plant chemical called lignans, and these lignans stimulate Highway 2 and discourage Highway 16. Number 3, the Anna's Wild Yam Cream is a cream that contains diosgenin. And when you apply that cream to your skin, the skin picks up the diosgenin and it stimulates this pathway that your body uses to make progesterone. And when you burst progesterone, if your estrogen's high, it'll bring it down. If it's low, it'll bring it up. So boosting progesterone will automatically balance all your other hormones. That's how it works. In America, you can buy progesterone cream. And if a woman has a severe hormonal imbalance, that progesterone cream might play a role initially. But eventually she will need to go over here. Because if you keep putting progesterone into the body says, well, this is nice, I don't have to make progesterone anymore. It can get a little lazy. Every year when I come to America, I meet women who've been on the progesterone and they've been on it for years and it's not doing it anymore. What the Annas does, it contains cells, stimulates the pathway that the body uses to make its... Can you have too much happy hormone? I suggest not. What did they say of Patch Adams? His problem was he had excessive happiness. I'd like to suggest there's not enough. But there definitely is a toxic dose of estrogen, as I have shown you. I met a 9-year-old girl who I advised go on the Anna's Wild Yam Cream. She developed breasts at 8 and she had her periods at 9. She's got a major imbalance. I met a 92-year-old lady who was on it for her osteoporosis. Progesterone boosts bone-building cells, so anyone on osteoporosis should be on progesterone. We'll cover that osteoporosis a little bit more tomorrow. Thyroid problems. High estrogen opposes thyroid function. Going on the Anna's Wild Yam Cream will get that estrogen down and help contribute to conquering thyroid problems. I've seen many, particularly women, conquer their depression by implementing what we're going to begin looking at tomorrow, which is the 8 laws of health. Going to bed early, exercising, drinking more water, stopping the caffeine. I find when those laws are implemented in conjunction with it, I use another table. As you'll see on Saturday morning, where I show you how you can rewire your brain, it takes about 21 days to form a habit. So apply. So that's 3 weeks a month. If a woman is still menstruating, she will apply it for these 3 weeks here where the progesterone is highest. She stops when menstruating. If a woman is not menstruating anymore, she just chooses 1 week of the month where she does not apply it. Ideally, a woman should be on it for at least a year. If she stops after a year and some symptoms return, what's her body saying? A little bit longer, a little bit longer. It might take 1, it might take 1.5 or 2 years. With many people, it's been out of balance for 20 years. The good news is it's not going to take 20 years to get back into balance, but it may take a year or 2 to get back into balance. But I do see women getting results sometimes within a month or 2. But it doesn't mean they're balanced yet. It's starting to get the balance. Let's have a look at the menopausal woman for a moment. Will this help with weight gain? Absolutely, especially in conjunction with time-restricted eating and the exercise, which we're going to look at in detail on Friday, drinking between meals, not snacking. Definitely. In fact, a common email that I get 6 weeks after the program is 10 kilos lost. What would that be? 20 pound. 20 pound loss. And people say to me, it's like I'm not even on a diet because I'm eating so well. But I'm not eating my large meal at the end of the day. And yes, the Anna's Wild, it will increase the desire for sex. But what about the very tender birth canal vagina? The cells are very tender. What about the lubricant that seems to be lacking in many women who are on the pill when they're young? Well, there's something else that's becoming popular, and it's called the yoni stones. The yoni stones are made out of nephrite jade, and they were developed in the Chinese dynasty to help the young concubines be sexually toned for the emperor. But they're becoming popular now, and as I explain it, you'll see why. The 3 stones are about this size. So this would be the largest stone, and then you've got the middle size stone, and then you've got the smaller stone. They look like little eggs, and they have little holes here where dental floss can be put in. And what a woman will do is she will insert this stone until it touches her cervix. A woman will not even be able to feel that he's there. For the first week, she wears it 1 hour a day. For the second week, she wears it 2 hours a day. Then for the next 6 months, she wears it 5 hours a day. By now, her pelvic girdle is strong. And she can now go to the middle-sized stone. And she will start wearing that for 5, 6 hours a day. She'll wear that for 6 months, and then she can go over to the smaller stone. So what's happening here? Well, let me draw your pelvic girdle stretched out and show you. So here's the pelvic girdle, urethra, there's the vagina, and there's the anus. So got muscles going round and round and round, strength. So it strengthens the pelvic girdle. Now the results that women are giving me feedback on is that sex is no longer painful. Because the pelvic girdle is strong, more blood's going to the area which is feeding the cells, nourishing the cells, and they're no longer so tender. I have had quite a few women tell me that the lubricant has returned. As the pelvic girdle gets strong, more blood to the area, the glands that make the lubricant are now making the lubricant. What about a man? Obviously the men cannot wear the only stones, but what about with the yam cream? Can a man apply the yam cream? Yes, he can. Why would a man apply the yam cream? He applies it twice a day and has no break, because men are not cyclic like women are. So he just applies a little bit every morning and every night. So these are some of the feedback I'm getting from men. One man said, "This stuff just puts lead in my pencil." And I had a couple say to me, "We stopped having sex in our late 50s because my husband was struggling with penile dysfunction," and she said, "and it was too painful for me." She said, "We're now in our mid-60s and enjoying sex again. It has helped my husband," and she said, "it is no longer painful for me." What I'm also finding is it's remedying prolapses. You would be shocked at the amount of women, even in their 50s, who are having prolapses. You talk to anyone who works in aged care, nearly every woman in their 80s has prolapse. But actually there's a lady out in the garden and she's squatting and gardening all day. She doesn't have a prolapse because that squatting does strengthen, and the Pilates type exercises strengthen, and the rebounder strengthens, and this particularly targets that area to strengthen it. My daughter Jessica had a home birth 8 years ago, and her just about comes to the opening of the vagina, very uncomfortable. She went to the doctor and he said he could sew it up with mesh. You've heard about the mesh? I've met some people and the mesh is doing fine. No. The doctor has... What's the problem? The problem is education. We should be exercising as much as the teenagers. You see, muscle knows no age. Whether you're 9 or 90, you can have strong muscles. So my daughter's midwife didn't like the sound of the operation and the mesh, so she Googled prolapse and she discovered yoni stones. And she started to wear the yoni stone. After 3 months, she went back to the doctor. He said, "I don't know what's going on here, but you don't need an operation anymore." All she did was strengthen her pelvic girdle, which pulled up her uterus. You see, we're always fighting gravity, isn't that right? And as you'll see in my exercise lecture, there's only one way to gain strength, and that is defy gravity. A friend of mine had twin girls 15 years ago, and both babies were 6 pounds. That's a lot of weight. And ever after the birth, if she coughed or laughed or sneezed, she'd lose a little urine. She heard about the yoni stones. She started to wear them. After 3 months, she could cough, laugh, and she would not lose any urine. So these also help incontinence. That's why I wanted to strengthen all of these muscles. So that helps with the incontinence by just strengthening the pelvic girdle muscles. That's what it does. So you can see why they're becoming popular. And when a woman gets her pelvic girdle strong, she can actually give them to her daughter. So this is something that you've got forever. After a woman wears it, all she does is wash it with a little soap and water, often comes in a little velvet bag and puts it back into her bag. But as you can see why it is having such results, because I always want to know why, you might have noticed. And it's because that's what it does. When those muscles are holding that stone, they're getting very, very strong. A 75-year-old lady came to me and she said, Barbara, I've ordered the yoni stones and I put the largest one in and it just fell straight out. Now what's that? That's no muscle tone at all, none. So what can she do? She can get on the rebounder and she can bounce. And if she gets on the rebounder 3-5 minutes, 3 times a day, it'll strengthen that pelvic girdle. So maybe if she's diligent, after maybe a month or 2, she will be able to start holding that stone and wearing that stone. If you're important in the Olympic Games, and that's the latter years of our life. I want to enjoy my latter years. So you got to start training, into training. Exercise every day. You've got to do what suits you. And you've got to move up to it little by little by little and strengthen those muscles. Remember, muscle knows no age. Whether you're 9 or 90, you can have strong muscles. I have long plane flights, 17 hours from Sydney to Dallas. So I often watch a few documentaries to pass the time. I watched a documentary on 90-year-old athletes. 90. Mind you, they're not running as fast as the 20-year-old, but they're strong and they're fit and they're enjoying their life. How many people in the world today are sick and struggling for the last 20 years before they finally pass? I want my daughter Jessica, or Emma, whoever I'm with, maybe I'm 99 like my grandmother was. I haven't come in for breakfast. They go outside, I'm sure I'll be in the garden. I'm lying on the path. They come up a little closer. Oh, I'm dead. How nice. Maybe I'm holding a gardenia and smiling. What a nice way to die. Not in every case, but in many cases, the way we live determines the way we die. So this is important stuff. My lecture has finished, but I'm going to hang around for a little bit longer. I have nothing pressing, and answer questions. Some people may have treatments at 10:30, so we're going to let the 10:30 treatment people go. And are there